we can hold those while we hold our grief too. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. But I think in keeping up with Professor Taskar's spirit, it's okay to laugh too. And over the next several minutes, we're going to hear from colleagues and former students and even family members. And some of what will be said will be sad. And some of what will be said will be funny, and it's okay to laugh and celebrate a life well lived. Celebrate an amazing man, an amazing legacy that he has left here at the University of Pennsylvania and around the country. So in the next few minutes, we hear from colleagues. We hear from Dr. Anat Caspi, Ben's wife, his father. We'll also hear from Penn's campus rabbi, Mike Urim. There'll be an opportunity for anyone else who wants to share to come up and share a few words, some stories, some encouragement to each other if you want. And then ultimately we'll hear from Penn's Glee Club too. But first we'd like to invite the Dean of Penn's Engineering School, Dr. Eduardo Glant.
Thanks, Chaz. We're probably going to be repeating many of the same things, those of us who will be speaking. And I am very torn, I have to say, between two of the stages of grief. There is a positive spin that we put to a situation like this, which is like a small 9/11 to us. We talk about celebrating the life of Ben Taskar, celebrating the fact that we had him for 36 years. But another stage is anger, and I am much closer to anger, I have to say, than to the celebration. We are good at rationalizing, and that's why they're celebrating the life. That's where it comes from. Been talking to people, and people say, well, Mozart lived for only 35 years, and Schubert didn't make it to 32, and Keats died at 25. But that is a bit of dehumanizing the person, because it's not a question of accomplishing so much, writing so much music, or writing so many odes, or writing so many papers on machine learning, and once you're done because you have done enough. And by all standards of my colleagues in computer science, he did a lot, and maybe enough for a lifetime, but there was much more of life that we could have had, and we were deprived, and that he was deprived of. So I'm sure that you are as torn as I am, and I am comforted by the sense of community when you see people rushing around and the care, the love with which they prepare an occasion like this. And that's testimony to, so he left something in all of us, and he and his passing brought us together, and that's good, I suppose. And so I hope we can turn this into a celebration of his life. As I say, I find it difficult. We're going to see him now, and I find it very difficult not to be very angry, but I guess that's okay too. Thank you.
Ben will be remembered not only as a great guy, but also as a gifted lecturer. And we have an opportunity now to hear a portion of one of his lectures. Following the lecture, we'll go right into hearing from Anat, and then from Ben's father. And then you can see the program will follow in order from there. Dr. Kostas Danilidis, all the way down to Rabbi Mike Urim.
a lot of machine learning theory has been developed for predicting a single bit. You know, you get an email message in your mailbox, it decides whether it's spam or not. How do we sort of we've beaten that problem to death. We know how to solve it very well. We've analyzed all kinds of models for it. How do we lift the models for predicting a single bit to predicting a sequence, to predicting a tree, to predicting a graph from a piece of data? So that's the sort of the focus of one of the focus of my groups. Another major thread is statistical relational learning. And what I mean by that is it's really what's emerging is this combination of approaches from statistics, so probability and statistical models that are very good at handling uncertainty and noise, and then logical approaches that come from philosophy and sort of core computer science, first-order logics, things that you kind of know about, temporal logics, that are really good at describing the world at a higher level, talking about objects and their properties, relationships between them. They're very rich representations. How do you combine those two? And so this is an ongoing research question that a lot of people are working on, and so those are the books that actually describe that. Another thread I think that's really quite critical to sort of advance the machine learning and wide adaptation of it is the problem of learning from weakly supervised data. So, you know, machine learning is great when you have a lot of people who can label data for you, right, and kind of sit there and hand annotate a lot of data which you need. In real world, oftentimes you do not have labeled data. You don't have the resources you don't have the grad students to label this for you, and they're not willing to do it. So what you want to do is you want to learn from as minimal supervision as possible. And so what we've been looking at different theoretical models and practical algorithms from learning from very weak supervision. So one of the things actually you're seeing here is learning from kind of video and text. So I have movies, and this is what you're seeing is actually some of the episodes from Lost. And then you have screenplays, so there's very weak annotation. Nobody actually labeled who's who. Nobody's labeled when and where somebody's doing something. But from just those very weak sources, what I can figure out is kind of in every frame who's who, you know, what they're doing with some accuracy. And this is what our goal is. So my group works both on applications of machine learning to computer vision as well as language parsing, actually machine translation, and a few other things. I'm not going to get to talk about all of them, but I'm meeting with a whole bunch of you later, and I'll show you some more demos.
First, I'd like to share an excerpt from The Wires of the Night, which is a poem by Billy Collins, who was one of Ben's favorite poets. I thought about his death for so many hours, tangled there in the wires of the night, that it came to have a body and dimension, more than a voice shaking over the telephone or the black obituary bold-faced of names and dates. His death had pages, a dark leather cover, an index, and the print was too minuscule for anyone to read. His death had hinges and bolts that were oiled and locked, had a loud motor, 4 tires, an antenna that listened to the wind, and a mirror in which you could see the past. His death had sockets and eyes, it had walls and beams, it had handles which you could not hold, and a floor you could not lie down on in the middle of the night. And then it was the light of day, and the next day, and all the days to follow, and it moved into the future like the sharp tip of a pen moving across an empty page. So I did think about Ben's death for the past 360 hours, tangled in all the wires and all other articles that he left behind, the coffee ground, the half-eaten soup bowl in the fridge. But I'm not yet in the gloom of the poem. I know that the empty page will come, but it isn't here just yet. It's all still too fresh and vivid and lasting, a lot like the experience of interacting with Ben, fresh and vivid and lasting. Ben never failed to surprise us, delight us, and surprise us. He was unique in his sense of whimsy, his simultaneous joy and dismay in the smallest things of daily life, and his deep and astute reading into the hearts of people around him. He was a purist. He wanted or demanded that things remain true to their essence. Even though he never used the word authenticity, he held it nearly everything through its prism, primarily held himself to the highest purity standards. He was an optimist, but not the kind with glazed eyes and foolish grins. To his optimism, he brought a science that made it believable and infectious. There were no delusions about reality, but a focus on the potential positive outcomes rather than the negative. It wasn't the kind of optimism that makes a gambler. It was the kind of optimism that seeds different ideas and has the sensibility and determination to make them germinate and grow. And while I had them at my side, even the greatest challenges seemed digestible, and defeats were almost sort of palatable. The greatest of life's disappointments seemed approachable when I had him as a partner. Time and time again, Ben brought us joy and understanding that would never have come to us any other way. He was my moral compass, my sanity preservation tool, my ritual, and my rock. Many of his friends, students, and collaborators have intimated similar things to me in the past 2 weeks. The loss of his partnership is so great. I personally just hope to continue and reel in this partnership's strength for as long as I can. UPenn was a wonderful place for both Ben and I to forge partnerships. Though I'm here talking to you feeling dismembered, and I'm really sorry that I can't be there physically, I do feel a source of strength. I feel surrounded by his legacy, his family, his community of loving friends, many of whom have come forth to support Aviv and support me. Weighted as I am by his passing, 360 hours later, I am still inspired and surrounded by Ben's unshakable glow. Thank you. And thank you very much for being there for us.
Next. Just need to get it back. Yeah. Where's the other?
Can you hear me?
Just a second. Yeah. Do you want to use the voice? I can hear you actually. Just right. Okay, actually we can hear him. Is he gonna be video? No. This one or which one? Ela?
There is no video camera,
okay.
So it's only audio.
Okay, you can, yeah, go ahead.
I can
Yep.
start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Can you see me?
We don't have video. No video. Is
Mark, there's a button there.
Oh, yeah.
there,
Okay.
there,
Sure.
okay.
Okay, we see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we see it now.
I see it. Okay.
I am Ben's father, and everybody understands how hard for me to talk. After, like Anat mentioned, 360 hours, but I would like to say a few words, and definitely he was the warmest word that I heard was in your booklet that you just yesterday released, and was right before this memorial. I was reading and crying that the word that been in my mind, and I just want to one more time say that he was an unacceptable husband with a lot of love to his wife, and the same about father. And I just can say that he never stopped by without kissing his little daughter. When she was diagnosed, she said, okay, I don't care about anything. I will put all my career, all my life for Aviv. But little by little, thank you, UPenn family brought him back to science, and I don't want to talk about his achievement. A lot of things I learned from articles and from what you guys been saying. He was a man of book, and one of his famous, whenever Mom, I asked him something. He said, start with the book. Read the book first, then you will see the answer. But in the same time, he was maybe the best advisor for his mom in any situation, and his sister as an advisor, mentor, brother, never been a little brother. When his sister is older than him, they always been the best friends and the best in their relationship. He was a wonderful grandson, and he was patient enough to explain to his grandmother what he is working on, and 90% of the people couldn't even pronounce what his latest paper talking about. But he was patient and loving grandson, friend, and mom spent with him, from day one, a lot of time to be, his best friend, and it always been this way. He never been kind of trying to show up. He always been helping, even in home. He was helping on the kitchen, just like in supportive role. He never said that he did something. And Anat mentioned this too, that he was a very integrated person and in a certain way perfectionist, but and demanding just to himself. He never been, asking somebody or criticizing somebody for not doing what he can do. And to the last moment, any of his paper, even if it was extended, he could work 24/7 till it's really perfect. And a lot of things we realized only now, what he did. So, and I just, I don't know, all my thoughts and words cannot describe how I feel, how I loved him, and we are here to help and to love Aviv, Anat, and you see, in all my life, when I was pronouncing his name, Ben, then I couldn't stop for hours, and probably it will be till the end of my life. Now, about UPenn, I visit UPenn when, in the very last day when Ben was leaving, and he spent the last 20 minutes talking with his dean. And I said, Ben, we are late. He said, no, I have to say goodbye. And it was a very interesting conversation with the dean, but I believe what I remember, he told him, look, Ben, doesn't matter where you're going, here the door is open always for you. This was the UPenn family who accept him, announce him, promote him, and he was recognized as a scientist, indeed, probably most of his papers, books, and so on. And I really appreciate all, including this event that you guys doing and did for Ben. And he was always talking about UPenn with such a warm feeling about. I just knew a few people like Kostas, Alex, and so on, and Kostas was following us all the way to the car in the very last moment, and it's still in front of me. So thank you very much for doing this, remembering Ben and his legacy, his wonderful smile and sun that was really going over everywhere. And he was the light in the end of the tunnel for us too through all our lives. Thank you very much. Okay.
Dear Anat, dear parents and sister of Ben, we are all in sorrow, but nothing is comparable to your pain. May our memories about Ben bring some strength during your grief. Yes, I'm Kostas Danilidis. Ben was brilliant. He was by far the most brilliant person I have been fortunate to work together. But most striking was his character. Ben was the personification of selflessness, courage, and positive attitude. When he arrived on the 4th floor of Levine Hall in 2007, the whole lab not only became smarter, but much brighter, much more positive. Ben was fearless. Although in his first year, he did not hesitate to take over the graduate class in machine learning. He taught it with the most rigor, but also care for his students, right in this auditorium we are now. His class became the largest and most popular graduate class in the history of Penn Engineering. In his very first year, he became the leader of a DARPA project, a project with lots of annoying distractions and pettiness, but he didn't complain once. Instead, during the kickoff meeting, he took me to a long hike at the outskirts of San Diego. During this long walk, Ben taught me with a rare crispness everything I want to know about machine learning. He was just brilliant and crystal clear. Since then, I constantly sought his advice and was fortunate enough to co-supervise a student with him. What was always striking me is that whenever I was going to Ben with a computer vision question, expecting some data-driven solution, Ben would give me an idea using only computer vision principles. In his 6 years at Penn, Ben advised 8 PhD students, an unprecedented achievement showing not only his creativity in new ideas, but also his devotion and his inspiring mentoring. He would encourage his students to be aggressive even when they faced fierce competition. He taught his students and his friends the term naive optimism, not to bend down when somebody else finds first the result, but always look forward. I cannot get out of my mind the night he called us about Aviv's diagnosis with SMA. But it took only one night till his optimism and fearlessness kicked in, and Ben, together with Anat, fought back. In addition to their search for medical solutions, Ben had set as his life goal to find a technical solution to make Aviv happier. He had many ideas, starting with a little buggy, then a passive robotic arm, then an active robotic arm guided by eye movements. Ben became a roboticist so that Aviv has a better life experience. I remember all the days that Ben would come into my office and show videos with Aviv's achievements, whether in controlling a buggy or swimming happily. His optimism and positive energy during that time were extreme. I remember him for 2 weeks sleeping in the hospital because of complications with Aviv's health, and then coming to the lab to work with his group. With his courage and positive attitude, he gave a different perspective to us as parents. Honestly, for Ben's students and friends, when we face a difficulty, we cannot avoid thinking, what would Ben do in this case? We will miss you, Ben. We will always have you in our hearts. Your genuine smile will always be in our memory.
Hello. My name is Michael Kerns, and I happen to be in Berkeley. Can we stop the feedback? Or do I need this?
They need to hear it.
Okay. I happen to be in Berkeley running a workshop when the terrible news about Ben came. which then led me to be in the very difficult position of having the task of telling in person Mike Jordan, who was a good friend of Ben's and his postdoc advisor during his time there. And it felt very odd to me to be away from Penn at such a difficult moment for this community. But it was also quite striking to see the same outpouring of grief and affection for Ben in a place where he spent a relatively small amount of time, a relatively long time ago. And it just reminded me what an unusual and remarkable person Ben was, and how he deeply touched the lives of even people he knew for only a very brief period of time. On the extensive list of comments that people have been posting on the memorial site, again and again you'll see people who really only had very short periods of time with Ben, who really felt like he was a friend of theirs for life. When we hired Ben in the department here, we knew we were getting a young star with really unlimited potential. And we all had the joy of seeing that potential fulfilled and even exceeded. At the risk of talking shop for a minute, Ben is what I like to call in academic terms somebody who was the complete player, not just a research genius perpetually generating new ideas, but just good at all of it, just a complete natural, great at advising students, great as a teacher of undergraduates, great at departmental matters, and just sort of one of those very rare birds in academia, the overall, good egg. What we didn't quite know when we hired him was that we were also getting such a warm and wonderful colleague and friend. I always found Ben to be relaxed, free to chat with you about whatever, wherever, and this despite, of course, the tremendous challenges that he faced in his own personal life with Anat and Aviv. And I'll admit that despite, the just sort of overwhelming sense of relaxation that it causes in one to be in Ben's presence, I often had the experience when I was talking to him of just wondering inside myself whether if I was ever placed in such a difficult position, whether I would ever bear it with the same poise, grace, elegance. And I'd like to think so, but to be honest with you, I really don't know the answer to that question. I think I speak for everybody when I say that Ben's departure to Washington was difficult, but difficult despite all of his accomplishments in the end, most of all for the loss of his regular company. But it was something we could bear because we could count on seeing him at conferences and meetings periodically. To have that now taken away from us is, of course, beyond words, even though we'll all spend some time up here today trying to put it into words. My deepest sympathies and condolences go out to Anat, Aviv, and all of Ben's family.
Hello. Yes. It's about 2 weeks ago when I first heard the news of Ben's passing. I remember the room went dark and cold. We had lost the start. So Ben was my next-door office mate and my co-PI, my co-author. In his 6 short years at Penn, he made a huge impact of all the people around us. It's been a privilege to know him. I also remember Ben as a very cheerful man, the guy who always full of ideas, always with a big laugh and big smile. Ben was a very hard-working man. I've never seen such a hard-working man working so hard and so cheerful at the same time. He always found a way to do things right and never wanted to take an easy way out. Ben is also a very good man who cares about the people around him and pour his heart out for everything he does. It's sad that his heart that gave out on him. So I always remember Ben as someone wearing his green jacket, a hiking jacket, and pushing his dirty mountain bicycle around. He's always with a big sweaty face coming somewhere. Ben has become a leader in his field, I would say a generation leader in the big data era. And his work has inspired a generation of people. It has been a hard struggle for him, but his work has inspired many people who want to follow his footsteps. And I've seen many people offer his grief towards him, sending emails to me, express their shock. When Ben came here, he co-started PRIML, a group collaborating with Wharton Statistics Department. Ben had a dream to become making Penn the leader of machine learning in this country and in the world. Ben taught the biggest machine learning class and biggest class in engineering school here. When he started, in typical Ben's fashion, and he wanted to do things right, which means there's a lot of hard math, a lot of rigorous definitions and derivations. People was not responding to his teaching very well, and I remember teaching evaluation was bad. But instead of backing off, Ben redoubled his effort with his student Jennifer and David. They have revamped the course page, put lots of effort into it. I was just amazed how much work he's willing to put into this long uphill struggle. But he succeeded. I can see definitely the effect on the students came out of his class very well prepared and much to my surprise. I remember many walk I took with Ben around Philadelphia. He liked to walk with his mountain cycles. He told me the story about him immigrated to this country when he was a teenager. He struggled quite a bit. He spoken with a very strong Russian accent. He moved from Kishinev, Moldova. And many people, he said, laugh at him. And today, if you talk to Ben, you probably don't even notice any accent. He just looked like a typical cheerful Californian boy. In the same way that Ben had crossed many interdisciplinary boundaries in academics, I'll spare you all the details, but I recognize Ben as one of the leader in computer vision today in his full right. Many people came to talk to me how amazed they are Ben as a computer vision scientist, not just as someone who can apply machine learning to computer vision. It's really a statement to his dedication to his work as well as his geniuses. I remember the last meeting we had with Ben was Anat also. They came out of home right before I went on sabbatical. That was the first time they both left home for 1 hour. Because of Aviv, they had never left home together for 2 years. They looked exhausted, but happy. You heard many stories about Ben's devotion to Aviv. I can remember many stories from the days when Aviv was born, how happy Ben was, to the news of Aviv diagnosed with SMA, to we discussing how to do signal processing on the breathing rhythms. Ben's full of ideas and cheerfulness. There's one more memory always stay with my memory forever. It was him looking at the video on YouTube of Aviv swimming in a little pool that he made for Aviv in the basement. Little Aviv was waving her arm around, the leg around like a ballet dancer. And Ben almost cried and smiled and said, I wish the gravity is just not so strong. So in many ways, I wish the time hasn't gone too fast. Can slow down a little bit. We're back.
Hi everyone. Ben was my advisor for the past 5.5 years, and I'd like to share just a few memories. When I was visiting grad schools and I came to UPenn, I had a half-hour meeting scheduled with Ben, and anyone who knows him won't be surprised to hear that even that meeting ran long. And during it, Ben told me with such great enthusiasm about the work he was doing with 2 other grad students, Kuzman and Joao, that he really put UPenn at the top of my list. The first paper I wrote here was with Ben and Kuzman, and Ben stayed up with us the entire night before the deadline. Even when the submission website didn't close at the scheduled time, he kept working with us for an additional 3 hours. The last paper I wrote with Ben, he showed exactly the same dedication. He was again up with us until the deadline at 2 a.m. He was revising the wording, the references, and giving suggestions for improving the figures right up to the last minute. Ben always went that extra mile. In fact, the only deadline I remember Ben absent from was 2.5 years ago when his daughter Aviv was born. The last time I saw Ben and Aviv together, he was blowing soap bubbles for her and doing everything he could to make her happy. I have so many other happy memories of Ben. In particular, I remember how much fun the group retreat he organized was. He took our whole research group to the Poconos Mountains, and we all went hiking and kayaking, and we cooked together, and of course we learned more about each other's research projects. Ben's dedication and his generous nature extended well beyond his family and his research group as well. He was also keen to help all the students in the classes he taught. During the years I TA'd for Ben's machine learning course, he never ceased improving it. He built a wiki with all the course notes, and he helped the TAs write notes for the recitations. For midterms and finals, he would get us all together and we would write and revise questions for hours. Ben's drive to perfect was contagious. Every year it would be 5 a.m. and the exam would be scheduled for 9 a.m. And instead of going to bed by that time, we would want to spend an extra half hour coming up with good question titles, like The Little Colonel It Could and The Curious Case of the Difficult Data. Ben went above and beyond. He inspired us with his exuberance and his dedication, and I'm grateful to have been his student for these past 5 years. Ben was also David Weiss's advisor, and David's away at a conference right now, but he prepared a couple of things to say, so I'm just going to read a few words from him now too. Here are David's words. It was not easy being Ben Taskar's student, as anyone who took CIS 520 can attest. As an advisor, he was unrelenting. According to Ben, the minimum requirements for a research project were to produce an entirely novel approach that won on every benchmark, ran in less time, and provided a more elegant, more principled approach than all the other competitors. He would often begin a conversation by asking, "So do we beat so-and-so yet? Why not?" And he was never satisfied with the answer, "I told you I just started coding a few hours ago." But what was most remarkable about Ben was not his amazing drive and success as a researcher, the way he pulled his students to succeed as he did. It was that at the same time he was the kindest, most upbeat, most caring person I knew. In fact, I loved to complain to other students at conferences that my advisor would call me late at night, keep me up for hours with a crazy new idea, because I also knew he did so because he genuinely cared about our project, about me and my career, and wanted me to push myself to achieve great things. I was never able to tell Ben this directly. It wasn't until the end of my journey that I truly appreciated what he had given me. So now I simply want to say, thank you, Ben. I would not be where I am today without you.
At times like this, I wish I were a poet or at least a writer so that I could express what I feel. Because when you express what you feel, you start feeling better. I guess that's why we gathered here. I'm not. Some live a short life but manage to do more than those who live long. These were some words of a rabbi at Ben's funeral last week. But for me, it's not Ben's great scientific accomplishments that measure the fullness of his life. Rather, it's the incredible number of friends he had, the warmth that was radiating from him, the contagious smile, and of course the, maybe to me, ever so noticeable Moldavian accent when he spoke Russian. The moment you met him, as many mentioned, you felt like you've known him forever. I first met Ben in September 2005 when I came to Berkeley to give a seminar for a postdoctoral position, and Ben was running the seminar series. I vividly remember how he greeted me without knowing me. He greeted me with a warm handshake, a big smile, and some Russian joke that I don't remember. But this moment is still in my mind, and I felt at home immediately. 3 years later, with an offer from UPenn at hand, I was drawn to Philadelphia in part by these handshakes, smiles, and jokes. Ben and Anat gave me and my wife a tour of Philadelphia, speaking very fondly of the city, which I believe he loved. Then there would be many dinners and lunchtime meetings, usually in a nearby coffee shop, always starting with a handshake, a smile, and a joke. In that cafe, we decided to start a PRIML Center. Credit goes to Ben for the name, the Penn Research and Machine Learning Center. His dream was to make, as was mentioned, to make Penn the center of machine learning, at least on the East Coast. We often talked about research. I was always amazed at how quickly he would penetrate the new topics, always on his feet and way faster than I am, for sure. I'm sure that many of us here had the same experience. Once his daughter Aviv was born, Ben would tell me how much he loves her and cares about her, and he used the most heartwarming Russian words that I've rarely heard when he talked about Aviv. Where others would have slipped into depression, he and Anat were always able to find strength and be optimistic, and this was amazing. He was optimistic about the new potential treatments, about the new assistive devices he was planning to make, and so forth. I'm not going to talk much about his scientific accomplishments. It's enough to see that he has a paper that was cited 1,000 times. But if you dive deeper into his papers, you'll see an amazing breadth, not just depth. From natural language processing to vision, from beautiful theory to important state-of-the-art applied results. Now that Ben is no longer with us, the best way to remember him is by helping Aviv and also to carry on Ben's ideas. More recently, these ideas have been centered around developing assistive technologies for children like Aviv, and hopefully we can carry out this research. It is very difficult to come to terms with this loss. May his bright life remind us to always make friends with those we meet along the way and greet them with a handshake, a smile, and a joke.
As a fellow machine learning researcher, I interacted often with Ben, and as many people have mentioned, I'm just amazed at his incessant good nature, goodwill, this combination of intensity but still just happy and relaxed and supportive. Just always a pleasure to talk to him. I miss that. I took over when we went to Washington the machine learning course. Several people have mentioned 520. It was unrecognizable from the course I'd given him 6 years earlier. Very hard, very intense math, lots of coding. And I reused many of his problems. I teach in this room 3 times a week Ben's course, a living memorial. I give the homework problems. And the students say they're incredibly hard. And I say, well, should I make them easier? They go, oh, no. They're useful. We're learning stuff. Just this ongoing legacy he's left behind of a way of teaching, a way of thinking, problems, the grad students who he helped develop, who also helped develop the course. And so for me, it's a sad pleasure, but it's a pleasure 3 times a week to be up here and remember Ben with the same notes and materials that he developed, and to think, how would Ben have explained, how did he explain these thoughts? And so for me, he's very much in my mind every day, every week, and it is a wonderful, and it's someone I would like to emulate. I want to be like him when I grow up.
So I didn't have a chance to get to know Ben, but hearing all of your words I want to share with you one teaching from Judaism and then to recite one prayer. The teaching tries to address the question of what is the legacy of someone's life. There's a very strange blessing in Judaism where we bless God who resurrects the dead. And when Jews say this blessing actually 3 times a day, it's interpreted as being part of envisioning a world that is more perfect, that's more just, that is more the way the world should be. And so the question arises, what is the connection between resurrecting the dead and making the world more perfect? And the answer, I think one of the answers, is that when someone touches our lives, the way Ben touched so many of your lives, with energy and creativity and brilliance, positive, warm energy, that while we may not have his life and his ongoing contributions, he lives inside of us. And the way that we make the world more perfect, the way that we make the world more as it ought to be, is by resurrecting the dead, making the legacy of Ben live in all of us. So in all those ways that he taught us or inspired us, we have an obligation to continue that, both to honor him, but also to make sure that all of the things he did in this world can continue on beyond his own years. The prayer that I would like to recite is the 23rd Psalm. And I have to admit, both in Hebrew and in English, I don't understand what it means. And I think that that's true probably for most people. But the power of the psalm is not literally in what it means, but the power is in the symbol that it offers us. The psalm, just like death, doesn't always make sense, and yet we have to recite the words, we have to continue to move on, and somehow or another, in the process of stepping forward, we come to a new level of understanding. Mizmor David, Adonai ro'i velo echzar, a psalm of David. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. Binot deshe yarbitzeni, give me repose in green meadows. Al mei menuchot yenachaleni, nafshi yeshovev, leading me beside still waters to revive my spirit. Yancheni v'ma'aglei tzedek l'ma'an shumo, guiding me on the right path, for that is God's essence. Gam ki elech b'gates al mavet, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, lo ira ra ki atai imadi, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Shiftecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni, your staff and your rod comfort me. Ta'arok lefanai shulchan neged tzorai, you prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. Dishanta v'shem roshi kosi rivaya, you anoint my head with oil and my cup overflows. Ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai, surely goodness and kindness shall be my portion all the days of my life. V'shavti v'veit Adonai la'orech yamim, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever.
Thank you, Rabbi Mike. If there's anyone else who would like to share something, even though you're not on the program, this is a time for any of Ben's former students or former colleagues to come on down and say a few words.
Thank you. My name is Val Tannen. I've been a colleague of Ben in the computer science department for many years. I was moved to speak listening to Ben's father and thinking about him and about his mother. That's not to say that my heart is not so close to Anat that I can't really attach words to it and feeling for them. But I was particularly moved by the parents. No parents should live to see their child pass away. And it reminded me that over the years that Ben was here, we had our little friendship. I was not a collaborator of Ben, but we had something in common, so we would always joke about it, and through that I was able to feel what many people have mentioned here before, this incredible warmth and feeling of friendship that Ben was gifting to all the people in his life around him. And that was in addition to Russian, which was one of the secret languages of the old country that he came from. There was another one, Romanian, which I share as well. I'm a Romanian Jew, and his parents and are Moldavian Jews, and we were making little jokes in Romanian, and he was trying to remember whatever Romanian he would he would remember, and it was always this laughter, this contagious laughter that when we would have a chat about this, it would just make me feel better for the day. And hopefully I was also able to bring some smile to Ben's thoughts with a little joke in Romanian over the years. I would like to say a few words in Romanian that probably his parents will understand. Adio, prietene, îmi vei lipsi întotdeauna, fie țărâna ușoară lui Ben. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcus. I was a former student. I was just moved to speak a little bit about his generosity from a student perspective. When I was an undergraduate freshman, actually, I emailed a bunch of professors out of the blue to talk about some machine learning. I was really optimistic about the area, and he was one willing to talk to me. So I came in expecting to have a half-hour talk with him, get a little bit of feel of what things are going on, and it ended up being a 2-hour sit-down where he explained like the entirety of the field, actionable steps moving forward, and really inspired me to go on, take his class. I went through that, actually. Jenny and Dave TA'd that. And now I'm doing my master's because of him here.
Hi, my name is Dan Widiano. I'm staff here. And I just wanted to say that I didn't feel like staff with Ben. Not to say that anyone else makes me feel that way, but I felt like I was a colleague working with him, and what tiny little bit I could teach him, he listened attentively and patiently. And I thought, when I learned of his passing, wow, why am I feeling so much pain? I didn't really know him that well. And the little that I did know him, I felt a certain magic. The magic he had was bringing people together. He brought me together with other people. He brought me into his world. He was not a separated person. I want to thank him for that, and for him helping me feel like Penn is another family.
I was advised by Ben last year. I remember when applying to the different universities, asking people for advice, and, people would name a lot of schools, but a lot of friends, said, instead of a school, they said Ben Taskar, because they said that, that he has, there may have been exaggerations, but he's somebody with comprehensive knowledge who knows everything about machine learning and just has an incredible ability to teach it, and that's really why I came here. I remember, first semester was like, I would sort of complain. I'm like, it seems my entire life has become, Ben Taskar work. It's not sure if he recognizes, that I have other courses, but that was because of the degree to which he was committed to having us succeed. One of the last things I remember is the last student who left, who graduated while he was here. We all went out to eat a very sappy goodbye to his student Ben Sapp, and while we were there eating, we had a presentation on the wall of the cafe we were eating in, because he always cared that at the same time we're bringing the group together. It was also about learning, about teaching us more, and it was an incredible commitment to us, as individuals and as researchers.
Hi, my name's Dan Lee, and I knew Ben probably about 10 years through various conferences, as well as when he came here to Penn. There's not much I can add in terms of the words that we heard from his family and friends and colleagues here. His joie de vivre, his just energy and enthusiasm. I remember one memory of mine was Ben was, if you didn't know, he was in part of a prestigious kind of faculty program run by DARPA, where they do this kind of training in the various military branches. And I remember him describing how he did the paratrooper training and how he's jumping down, rappelling, and just the kind of the joy and energy that he used to do these types of activities. And I think he brought that here to Penn. Another memory I have was going home one day, and I saw him in the on Hill Field, and he was with his research group, and they were playing soccer, and you could see them just kind of running around and laughing, and how much fun he had with his students, and then with his family, how he thought about Aviv and kind of all the bright ideas he had about how to do the assistive technologies. All these things, I think, just kind of reflect, how much energy and how big of a loss we have in losing Ben.
Hi, my name is Sampath Chauhan. I knew Ben for about 6 or 7 years. I want to start by thanking everyone for making this beautiful ceremony possible. Reverend Howard, Rabbi Yoram, who's left us, the Penn Glee Club, who will be here shortly, all the speakers who shared their hearts about Ben, and of course the people calling in, especially Anat and Ben's father and the rest of Ben's family for giving heartfelt remarks, making heartfelt remarks. I'm probably going to be repeating what a lot of people have said more beautifully, so I'll be brief. Ben was a brilliant computer scientist, as you've heard many times. He also made more connections with other parts of the world, other parts of academia, than most other computer scientists do. He had research contacts with linguistics, with the Graph Lab, which was his natural home originally, and of course also with bioinformatics. So he connected with many people, and I can see in the audience that the university is well represented here. I had, as many people said, many brief but wonderful and leavening encounters with Ben on the corridors of Levine. It didn't take more than 2 minutes to lighten up your day from talking to him. I had a few substantive encounters, probably too few, sadly. One of the things that we had planned to do was to go to a concert by Vijay Iyer. Ben was quite keen on him, and Anat was quite keen on him, I think. We tried, but tried too late, and we couldn't get tickets. So the music accompanying the slideshow to follow is by Vijay Iyer. So we will get to hear him together, finally.
before the Glee Club comes up to close us out, again, I wanted to join Sampath in thanking everyone who spoke and who came today to honor Ben. I think you really honored your friend, your colleague well today. Memorial services aren't just about looking back, but they're also about looking forward as well. And I don't know if you caught it, but in the snippet of the lecture we saw, on the top of the screen were the words richer representation. And as we look forward, those are two words I'm holding. That, like Ben, maybe in various aspects of our lives, we too can have richer representation. Whether it's constantly working to be a better professor, the way that he worked on his lectures and worked on each class, to be a stronger researcher, to be a better student, working for richer representation in our families, the way that he constantly worked for Aviv, or to have a richer representation in that balance that is so hard for all of us here to achieve, in the way that it seemed like Ben really got. So again, thanks everyone who worked hard today to pull this together, especially Rita and Charity and Dr. Shi and the tech team and Sampath, all of you. You really represented richly today.
The next piece, in a bit more of an uplifting and celebratory mood about all the great things about Taskar, is titled Let the River Run.
We're coming to the edge, running on the water, coming through the fog, your sons and daughters. Let the river run, let all the dreamers wake the nation. That lead them, and sirens call coming to the edge, running on the water, coming through the fog, your sons and daughters. Let the river run. Let all the dreamers wake the nation. Come, the new Jerusalem.
Thank you for coming, everyone. You're invited to the reception right outside.